Forecasters tracking a monster winter storm that could become historic and catastrophic with dangerous impacts expected for tens of millions of Americans this weekend. Buckets of snow, crippling ice, and frigid temps threaten to paralyze the South, Midwest, and East Coast. Joining us now is the director of the National Weather Service, Ken Graham. Director Graham, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Jan. Thanks for having me on today. So thank you.
When you hear words like historic and catastrophic, that's going to get some people's attention. What makes this storm different from what we typically see?
I think part of it is just the size. I mean, I was looking at it even this morning. We have our website's weather.gov, and I looked at it this morning just trying to take in the big picture. And we have watches and warnings stretching from New Mexico to New England, 2,000 miles. So more than half the country is involved with this winter weather event. So I think one part of it, we get ice, we get snow. Nothing's off the chart historic in some of the amounts, but what's off the chart to me is just the sheer size of this storm.
It is humongous. Talk about some of the timelines here, when and where the storm's going to start to hit the hardest.
Yeah, it looks like things are going to be starting up today. So looking at Texas, you start looking at Oklahoma. So today you'll start seeing the increase in some of that precipitation. The cold's already filtering into the country from the north. So the cold temperatures are going to be in place. So you're going to start, the precipitation begins today, progressing over the weekend. So into Saturday, Oklahoma, Saturday night, you start thinking Arkansas, you think in Louisiana, and then Saturday night and into Sunday, even Sunday night in New England, you start looking at the I-95 corridor, it's going to start seeing some significant snowfall and even sleet. So at that time, that's the progression. So it's a weekend event, and it's going to be significant air travel, road travel, just significant impacts all across the board.
Also significant cold, a major factor here. How dangerous could these frigid temperatures be, and what should people know about the risk of power outages and heating failures?
Yeah, we're starting to use language like, especially the areas East Texas, Arkansas, in the south, where you're going to get the freezing rain. So that we predict a ½ inch to an inch of freezing rain in some of those areas. That's catastrophic. That's trees coming down. That's power outages. And you mentioned the cold, Jan. That's part of the problem here too, is the cold isn't going away anytime soon. So once all that ice falls, and then you start having zero wind chills, you have temperatures well below freezing all over the Gulf Coast, the ice isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So those power outages could be prolonged in some places, especially rural areas where you can't get trucks in there with the trees down. I wouldn't be surprised some people won't have power for possibly a week. So we got to be prepared for that.
And that's really scary when you talk about sub-zero, sub-freezing temperatures from some of these areas that aren't used to this. We've seen, the forecast change a few times as this storm does come into focus. Not too dramatically, though. Why are winter storms like this particularly hard to track, even with updated technology?
Well, I was director of the Hurricane Center, and I found it was easier to predict a hurricane than it is winter weather. It really is.
Wow.
Because there's so many factors that come into a winter weather event. You got to have the cold. You have to have some sort of lifting mechanism to lift the air up to cause the precipitation, and you have to have moisture. So in this case, three things coming together. One of them is the cold air. We got it. Check mark. We got the cold air in place. The other one's a low pressure off the Pacific, and now it's in the desert Southwest. That's going to be moving across the southern United States, providing that lift. And the other one is in the Gulf of America, about 10 to 12,000 feet, there's a warm area bringing up some moisture into the system. That's what's going to cause some of the moisture involved with the freezing rain. So we have thrown everything at this, Jan. We have aircraft. We've actually sent aircraft to the Pacific to look at the low pressure out there. We have aircraft at several different altitudes in the Gulf of America to start looking at where's the moisture, how much moisture there is. So a very difficult forecast, getting the observations we need to get into the models to make the prediction.
Do you expect any big changes in the forecast models right now?
I think you're going to see very consistent in the forecast models. What you can see is these small, faster, slower, 30, 40 miles in either direction. So anybody that's on the border of you getting freezing rain or snow, those type of things could slide around 40 or 50 miles. But at this point, it's all about getting ready. Yeah. At this point you're going to get winter weather, whether it's snow, whether it's sleet, whether it's the freezing rain. You got to be ready. It's coming.
Freezing rain is the worst because that's the ice, and that's what's really dangerous. All right, Director of the National Weather Service, Ken Graham, thank you for joining us and for the work your team is doing. We really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Jan.